Hello and welcome to another episode of MacStories Unwind. I'm John Voorhees, and I'm back in North Carolina after a brief jaunt to Los Angeles, California, which we'll be talking about today with my very special co-host, who's here every week with me, Federico. Hey.
Hello, John. Welcome back home, I guess.
Thank you. I feel rested today. Yesterday, I was really tired on the trip back. It's like a 4.5 hour flight. I slept about half of it. Yeah,
so you're basically doing coast to coast, right? I mean, it is.
Oh yeah, not basically. I mean, yes. I could. It would have been a few miles to get from Beverly Hills to the ocean on the West Coast, and it is a few hours from the ocean here on the East Coast. But yeah, I was coast to coast.
Man, America is wide. It's a really.
It is a wide.
It's
country.
a wide country.
It's a thick country.
It's
Federico.
a thick country. It's kind of compressed. You know, it's short.
Yes.
But wide.
It's squat. It's what they call a squat country.
Yeah, I mean, it really is 4.5 hours to essentially go coast to coast. That's wild.
Yeah, it used to be easier when I was in Chicago getting out to California. Now it's a bit of a trip, but and the planes, of course, these days are totally packed. There was not a single seat open on the plane, so it was,
everybody's traveling, everybody's doing it, you know.
Yeah, but it was fine. It was good. I mean, the flights were on time. The trip was great. I thought we could talk about it a little bit if you want.
So, what'd you do? Where'd you go? How was the event? Tell us everything.
Yeah. So I went out there to attend the Airbnb media event, which is what they do. These what they call releases, where they kind of package up a bunch of new services and new features and do a little what I would say is kind of an Apple style thing. You know, Brian Chesky, who's their CEO, is very much a fan of Steve Jobs. You can see that in a lot of the interviews with him. And there are a lot of former Apple people there. And that's really where our connections come in, is that we actually know some of the PR people and other people there who we've dealt with over the years at Apple who have moved over there. And they invited us out, both of us out, to attend this event. You couldn't make it, but I said, yeah, sure, I'll check it out. I'm interested. Because the tease for us and the reason we were going was because they were rebuilding their app from the ground up, which we will, and this is a little sneak peek for people for Monday's App Stories. We interviewed two of their execs all about the app, and that will be on Monday's App Stories. And I think it was a fantastic conversation because they're people, we talked to both the VP of product marketing and the VP of design and went really deep on all the aspects of the app, which is a very modern and very nice app. But you'll hear more about that on App Stories. But that's kind of why we were there, was to talk about the app. Because what's very funny, Federico, is when I got there, so there was it was really just a one-day event. But I went out on Monday. Monday night, they had kind of like a meet and greets party on a rooftop of a surf and turf restaurant in LA on Melrose. Turf. Yeah.
That's funny.
That's what they call it.
I know. I've never been a fan myself of the idea.
No, it was mostly seafood, the restaurant, but it also had other things. But
actually, hold on a second. Quick parenthesis. I need to understand if something that I think is just me, that I'm weird or not. So let's say that I'm preparing you a meal. Okay.
Right.
And in the same meal, I serve you both meat and fish. Is that strange for you or not?
Yeah, I think it's strange.
Okay.
And I don't think of a surf and turf restaurant as necessarily being that. Yes, they will have
but just in general in life, because I know a lot of people who are like, I don't understand. Like, I can go from eating some tuna to a piece of steak, and to me that's always seemed like so strange.
It's too much, I think.
It's too much, right? It's too different.
It's a lot of rich food. And a lot of people do a steak and a lobster, which is very, very rich. Lobsters soaked in butter. That's a big thing at some steak restaurants. That's too much for me.
All right. But anyway.
It wasn't a sit down meal or anything. It was just like cocktails and, they're passing around hors d'oeuvres. So that was the first night. But the event was on Tuesday and showed up in the morning. And I very quickly realized that this was a different kind of event compared to an Apple event. They had taken over what was a movie studio space, essentially a giant warehouse, like
Okay.
football stadium size event space that had then been subdivided into a stage area where they did the presentation.
Okay.
And then they had another building where they were doing interviews, and they had a waiting area with all kinds of fancy couches and food and coffee being served to people who were there. So it had elements of what I would say would be like a traditional Apple style presentation at WWDC or before COVID when they used to do more in-person events on campus. But it was also a very different crowd because all the travel influencers were there, Federico.
Okay.
It was very heavy into TikTok,
Okay.
Instagram.
Of course.
Probably there were probably more people who were TikTokers and Instagram influencers than there were YouTubers. And then there was like traditional press, which I kind of fell into that category, I
All right.
suppose.
You were traditional press. There you were, just an Apple blogger, and there's all these young people, I assume, with doing...
Well, and you can tell because like there was a lot of very young women primarily who were maybe 21,
Yeah,
20 to
like travel and lifestyle influencers.
yeah,
right?
that's what they were. It was like 20 to 25 years old, and they were dressed like they're going out clubbing at 11 in the morning. I mean, they were very, very well dressed.
Yeah.
Looking their best for the camera.
Yeah.
But
Of course.
also kind of seemed out of place compared to what I'm used to.
You're used to a bunch of nerds, usually white males. I mean, let's face it, going,
Yes.
Getting sunburned at Apple Park. That's what you're used to.
That's what I'm used to. And I looked like that guy, and I looked a little out of place, I will admit. Although there were a handful of the traditional media people, you could spot them from a mile away because they were just like, they looked like regular people in regular clothes who weren't really worried about getting photographed. And so, and I was kind of placed amongst them during the keynote. I was very close. I was right in the middle, row K. So I had a very good view of the stage, and I sat with some Italian media people.
Okay.
Somebody from Mexico. That's the other thing about this is that there were people from all over the place.
Right.
There were people from China, from Mexico, from South America, from Europe. I mean, Canada, just everywhere basically, which was kind of neat. I mean, it was even more so than I think we've seen at some of the Apple events. So that was that was probably the funniest thing was just seeing, I think you can look back at some of the Apple events when Apple started inviting YouTubers and influencers to their events. And there was kind of this weird reaction, I think, amongst the people who were traditionally writing about Apple and in the media and on blogs and things. And this is like that times 10.
Okay. Wow.
All right. It was really, I was maybe, the traditional media was maybe 10%, I would say. And there were celebs. There were a lot of celebs there too.
Yeah, you saw Megan Thee Stallion, right? Was it the event?
Orlando Bloom was there.
Orlando Bloom was there? Wow.
I did not see him. He stayed seated most of the time. Megan Thee Stallion was standing up a lot of it. That's how I got a picture of her. And then T-Pain was there.
Wow. Okay.
Kevin Hart.
Really?
Was there.
Huh.
Yeah. I saw Kevin Hart. He was a little hard to see because he's not super tall.
Yeah, right. That's his thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. What's Brian Chesky like on stage as a presenter?
He's a very good presenter. He did a fantastic job. I think he really captured what they're trying to do with the app and also came across as very sincere in kind of his pitch for the app. Now, I mean, I know there are a lot of people out there. I mean, it's worth acknowledging that Brian Chesky is kind of a tech bro who has like pals around with Sam Altman and Elon Musk
the whole founder mode thing.
Yeah, the whole founder mode thing.
This is probably controversial for me to say, but I do think there is something to the idea. And I know that a lot of people poke fun of the idea. I do think that, but that's a different conversation. I do think that people who are founders and, have a different attitude for some
I think
things.
so too. And I think that that concept has been extended beyond probably what he ever meant it
Yes,
to
yes.
really mean,
I will.
which,
I will say what I do like about Brian Chesky. I've never seen Brian present on stage, but I do like from his Instagram that he's 100% a dog person. So lots of pictures of his dogs on Instagram. So that I appreciate. But let me ask you this: does he try to be very Steve Jobsian on stage?
no, I don't think
Okay,
so.
good.
I
Okay,
would say it was his own style.
okay.
It was the presentation, very much the slides and the pacing and kind of the vibe of it
Mm.
had an Apple feel to it.
I mean, everything pretty much does these days.
Yeah, I think every company has tried to kind of mimic that to a
Yeah.
degree, but I also feel like he was telling his own story and
Okay. Okay.
wasn't really acting out as though he were acting out an Apple presentation. And it was a good presentation, and they're doing a lot of interesting things. I mean, we'll talk about it more, I think, next week, but I do feel like they've come up with I think they have a really good idea. I'm not sure whether they can execute on it because they're moving into experience. They've done experiences before. This is kind of a relaunch of experiences, but they're also adding services, and it's just a lot. And as good as the app is, and as I think compelling as the idea is, I think it's going to be very hard to execute that at scale. I think that's going to be, that's really where the rubber hits the road with something like this. So, and that remains to be seen. But that's where my skeptical tech reporter hat comes
Okay.
from, and when I think about it,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this is really impressive and really a good presentation, but can they really do it?
Right, right. So you did the event, we did the interview, which will come out in a few days on App Stories. I was up very late to do that interview because, of course, you are in California, so the 9-hour difference,
Right.
we're not used to it. We usually work with a 6-hour difference between us, which you
Right.
wouldn't think it's a lot, but when it comes to recording in the evening, it is a lot. There's a big difference between 11 p.m. and 8 p.m.
Yes.
What did you do after?
So afterwards, I did one of the experiences, and they have a couple of different kinds of experiences. They have experiences and they have like Airbnb originals, which are created exclusively for Airbnb. And this was one of those. It was cooking in a kitchen with a chef from Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And it was a lot of fun. Now, to give you an idea of the range of things that I heard people were doing,
Yeah.
it's very much tailored to the crowd.
Okay.
I was with traditional media people, mostly middle-aged men and women who were cooking in the kitchen and drinking wine and then eating their food. Thumbs up for that. Good pick. There were other people who went to a mansion in Beverly Hills and did yoga in the hills of Hollywood.
Okay. Well,
I don't think that would have been for me.
yeah.
There was another one where they went and did to a makeup artist, a Hollywood makeup artist,
Obviously not for
and
you.
had not really my thing either, right? So there was that. What else did people do? Those were the three main ones that I heard of
Okay.
that people were doing. But there was another one where they did a thing with a personal trainer,
Okay.
which
That you could have done.
I could have done that. Yes, I could have done that. But I really enjoyed going in the kitchen and doing some cooking because we made this traditional Zimbabwean recipe that it's a little hard to explain. We create this use what's like a local grain that's a little bit like cornmeal, where you created like a ball of cornmeal that was, I think of it as thick grits
Okay.
from
Okay.
the South, where you made that, and then we combined like tomatoes and onions and mustard greens and some spices, and created that kind of a cooked, sautéed bunch of vegetables.
Yeah.
And then they did chicken legs that were
Okay.
like baked in an oven.
Okay.
And that was all in a big bowl, and you ate it with your hands. We
Okay.
did get silverware, and I tried eating it with my hands for a little bit, but it's very messy, because
Yeah.
what you would do is you take a little bit of the grain, which is you kind of break it off in chunks.
Right, because
and then
it's
you would-
chunky. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, because it's very thick, and then you would dip it in the mustard greens and vegetables, and it was
It kind of
delicious.
It kind of sounds like. Have you ever had couscous? It kind of sounds like that.
Yes, although couscous is loose,
Yeah.
and this was
This
all
one is.
stuck together.
Oh, okay. So it's okay.
Almost to the point where you would say this is almost like a roll, like a piece of bread, but
Oh, wow. Okay.
not as held together as a piece of bread, but closer to a piece of bread than
Wow.
like
Okay.
rice or
Interesting.
risotto or
Interesting.
couscous or anything like that.
I bet lots of starch in that grain.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
lot of starch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely a lot of starch. But so this was at a location in LA where during the day it's a co-working space, and at night they do events like this one with Airbnb
Okay.
and other cooking classes where they invite in a new chef every month from a country where they've been displaced from a country. You know, they're refugees or they're escaping some sort of violence in their home country. And it's run by a Nigerian woman who was lovely. We talked to her, and we had the Zimbabwean chef and her assistant, sous chef. And after we made everything, we sat at a long table all together. And there were people from Argentina and Mexico and Italy and Venezuela and me. And it was just a really nice way to get to know a lot of people. And I even met one of the Airbnb people who was kind of operating in the background, helping out. Turns out she lives 4 miles from me in North Carolina. So we were chatting about local things for a little while.
Small world after all. Really
Definitely,
small.
definitely. So it was a very nice experience. And that's why I think that this idea has a lot of potential. I think that you'll hear in App Stories is this very unique perspective of having an app that's designed to get you out of the app and into the real world to do things and meet people and be social. And I think that is a great goal.
Yeah.
We'll see how they can execute, but if obviously that group of people and that particular experience was very much tailored to appeal to me and to the other people I was with. So it wasn't completely like I just walked into something cold. It was kind of arranged, but it was a lot of fun too. I enjoyed it a lot.
Nice. Well, thank you for the report from the field, John.
Yes, that's the behind the scenes. And then the next day I just basically got up, had breakfast in my room and left for the airport. It was a full day of being on an airplane practically.
Here you are now. So thank you.
Here I am. I'm back in action, baby.
All right. Well, thank you for this special segment this week on Unwind.
Yes. Shall we do some picks, Federico?
What do you have?
I do have one.
Okay.
I have fallen off the Marvel bandwagon over the years. I am not, Marvel started to feel like work where it was too hard to track what was going on from movie to movie and show to show, and there was just too much stuff. But I dove into Daredevil Born Again recently, which is on Disney Plus.
Nice.
And it used to be that the Daredevil show was on Netflix several years ago. And it was quite good then. And I watched it then and really enjoyed it. It got canceled and then picked up more recently by Disney, has much of the same cast, and picks up with a new storyline. And I've really enjoyed it. I mean, it's been one of those shows where they're usually like 40, 45-minute episodes. I think there are 9 or 10 of them. I'm almost finished. I have like one or two episodes to go. And I've been watching them in chunks of 2 and 3 at a time because they're really good cliffhangers at the end of a lot of the episodes. It follows, the Daredevil character who's a blind lawyer who fights crime in a mask. Very much like, I suppose, sort of like Marvel's Batman, because he doesn't really have superpowers, except that because he's blind, he has very acute hearing, and probably more acute hearing than than a real blind person.
Right.
But that's kind of his superpower, is like he can like hear through walls and stuff in ways that other people can't. But other than that, he's just really fit and good at fighting guys with bad guys with his gadgets and things. And the plot of this thing has been a lot of fun to watch. So I highly recommend it. I mean, I don't want to give away too much, but it does kind of pick up with the same cast of characters from Netflix. So if you watched it years ago, this is a good one to pick up. And it's because it's kind of light on the capes and superpowers. It's more of a a crime drama than anything else, which is why I like it. I kind of like it in the same way that I liked The Penguin, which I recommended, I think, last
Right.
year at
Yeah.
some point
Yeah.
on HBO.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you.
All right, Federico. Well, you know what? Before we go, I do want to give everybody one pick for an Unwind Deal because I was looking this morning, and I don't know if you've ever watched this, Federico, but have you ever seen Fargo, the TV show version of Fargo? I mean, it's a
No,
movie.
I know what it is, but yeah.
Yeah, I've only ever watched the first season, but right now you can get the first 3 seasons. It's an FX show for $20, which is a really good deal because normally it's like 40, I think.
Okay.
So it's basically half off. I thought I'm going to pick this up because since I only ever got through the first season, which I enjoyed, but I fell off for some reason, I'm going to pick this up and maybe watch through the other 2 seasons as well at some point. But I'll have that link in the show notes. So if you're interested in checking out Fargo, got a pretty good deal there.
Nice.
And I think that's it for this week, Federico.
All right. Well, thank you again.
All right. Well, everybody, you can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net and, of course, on social media, where Federico is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.